Ciao, I'm Mario, the Swiss Car Guy on YouTube, and today I'm again sitting in the construction site that is my 1964 Cadillac Coupe De Ville. In the last videos I talked about the car not running really well, and I thought it had to do with the carburetor, and I did fiddle with the carburetor, meaning I adjusted the idle as well as I could, and now the car actually starts really well. Because now this car is stone cold dead, it hasn't run since yesterday, and I'm going to show you how well it starts. And usually it starts really well, so let's see. Let's do ignition on. Let's pump the pedal twice, and then so as you see, the car starts basically perfectly, and this is not a good thing, paradoxically, because on a carbureted car it's actually not normal that the car starts this well, especially when it's cold. It's about 10 degrees Celsius here in the garage, and the choke is off. So this may be an indication that this car is running rich, and I mean really rich, basically as rich as a Russian oligarch. And all the adjustment to the carburetor did absolutely nothing to it. I even adjusted the idling mixture screws all the way in, which should basically kill the engine, and this engine just kept on running very happily. So the carburetor definitely has a problem. It's definitely leaking fuel in some capacity, and I think the power valve might be broken, leaking or whatever, but it means I'm going to take the carburetor off to have a look in it and attempt to rebuild it. And yes, I know this car has a Holley carburetor. It's not the right carburetor, the original carburetor for the car, but then again, I don't want to spend $500 on a new carburetor, and even then, if I spend $500 on a new carburetor, I would be tempted to still go with the Holley and not with the original Carter Edelbrock style carburetor, because everything has been set up to fit the Holley. So if I went back to an Edelbrock style, I would have to change linkages and stuff like that, which I really do not want. But at the same time, I do not want to buy another Holley. So I want to take this off, investigate to see if it's fixable, which I hope it is, and then I will try to fix it. Because I mean, it's carburetor, it's 100 and many years old technology. How hard can it be, really? Plus, there is the internet, there is a wealth of knowledge. I should be able to do this. So, in the next step, I will either show you how I take the carburetor out, or, since I reckon this might be quite boring, I will switch directly to me on my workbench, which is most likely either my kitchen or my office desk, disassembling the carburetor. So if you like this kind of mechanical work, I mean, I think the series on this car will give you a lot of content. Before doing all this, I replaced the spark plugs because I reckon they may have been fouled, which they were, but I also sort of reckon they might be like 20 years old, because they were Autolites, and Autolite is a brand that is not really distributed here in Europe. So either somebody really went through the trouble of importing the spark plugs from America, or these are the same spark plugs for at least 14 years, because that's how long I know the car is in Switzerland. So I put in some new spark plugs. I bought the Champions, I bought the cheapest ones I have. These will not be the final spark plugs, because they will get fouled too, since the engine runs so rich. But they are a heck of a load better than the old ones, because the old ones, they were really not that great. I mean, they were really bad. I've never seen spark plugs this bad. I was amazed the engine was running at all. But with the new spark plugs, the engine actually doesn't run much differently, which either is a testament to how well these engines or not well these engines run, or I have still other problems that I need to figure out. Well, but that's just a little update from the car. I'm spending a lot of time working on this car, figuring things out, how they are supposed to be, and that doesn't make for great content, because first, it's kind of boring me researching stuff on the internet, and on the other hand, even if I film myself working, since I don't really know what I'm doing and I have to figure everything out, while filming, this takes me even longer. So I'm just going to give you updates from time to time instead of filming the whole process, because I don't have hard disks large enough for all of that footage. And as usual, if you've seen something that isn't right or I'm doing wrong, please comment down below, because every bit of information helps. And since there is a community, I'd like to use it to my advantage to make this car as good as possible. It will never be a show car, but I want it to be a really good runner.
I've already taken off the air cleaner, and then I go about taking off the throttle linkage and the springs that hold back the throttle. You cannot see it because it's on the other side of the carburetor, but trust me, I am doing it. Guess I should have had a second camera, right? The choke cable gets disconnected. Next up, I disconnect the main fuel line. I use an appropriately sized bolt to plug the fuel line to prevent it from leaking. Next, I try to disconnect the fuel lines from the carburetor, but I cannot do it since I need a larger wrench to hold the fitting on the carburetor in place. So I will leave the fuel lines on and I'll remove them later on the bench. So now it's just undoing the nuts that hold the carburetor onto the manifold. Since the carburetor itself is fitted through an adapter plate, there are actually studs inside the adapter plate that have come loose as well, so I will have to re-tighten them when I reinstall the carburetor. I've also lost a nut, but it didn't go into the manifold, it went somewhere else, I hope. This should be a standard sized nut, probably an M8 or an M6. Of course, I also disconnect all the lines that are connected to the carburetor, which is mainly vacuum and PCV. And finally, the carburetor is free to be lifted out. Since it is quite full of fuel, I am lifting it into a plastic container. That is actually too small. The carb is out and I try to get the adapter plate out as well, but the bolts are really firm and I don't have a screwdriver large enough, so for the time being it's staying there. I cover up the open manifold with a bit of cardboard, just to prevent stuff falling into it. Everything is wet inside there. And I can't get the screws off because I need a larger screwdriver, but this plate will come off as well because something is not right. Today I'm sitting on my little terrace with my carburetor because I'm going to disassemble it, and I cannot really do this inside my apartment because fuel and smell, and already putting it in the apartment has created quite a unique scent. So I'm doing the work outside here, but I need to open it up because I need to see whether it's alright, and most of all I want to open up the primary fuel chamber to see what jets I have in there and if the power valve is still working. I actually ordered a rebuild kit, but I haven't received it yet, but for now I will just open this thing here and see what I got in there, and then I will go from there. We'll start by taking the fuel bowls off. Actually, I start by taking the fuel rail off, that's probably better. I've set the carburetor onto some bolts so that it doesn't directly contact with the table and with the surface, and I can handle it a bit more easily. Good, the fuel line is out of the way. Okay, now I have access to the fuel bowls here. And actually I only want to see this one for the time being, because this is the main fuel bowl, the one with the jets inside. The other side has plates and the idle screws. And speaking of idle screws, let's see what shape they are in. Yeah, these idle screws look actually really good. So I'm putting it back in. Well, should I get this hose off? Yeah. Hose is off. then I could go for the fuel bowl. Wow, these are not tight at all. They come up really easy. They come out by hand. And number 4. All with their nylon gaskets. So basically this thing should come off now. Doesn't want to though. Come on, out. Ah, damn it. Where do you need to hit it? I don't want to hit it. Okay, so I got the fuel bowl off. We have the accelerator pump here. And the float. Ugh. This is full of dust. But these parts look quite good because the carburetor is actually, I think it's fairly new. I think it's less than 10 years old. So I expect them to be in good shape. Also, this was never the issue. The floats, I already adjusted them on the car. They were right, so no problem here. I'll put this to the side, into the box. And then let's pick up the carburetor without the fuel bowl. Here it is. Okay. It has a blue gasket, which I think these are reusable, so this is a good thing. I will just take out the jets because that's what interests me. What jets are in this carburetor? Oh, this is a 72 jet. 72 is the number that's written on it. I reckon it's ballpark alright. It might be a bit on the large side. I think stock this would have like something 68 or something like that. So I might jet this down. So at least I know now I'm on 72. So let me order a jet kit so I can jet this down because I think it's too rich, way too rich for this car. I think a smaller jet might do a world of good here. Let's see if the other one's also a 72, just to be sure this hasn't been messed with. This is a 72 as well. Okay, so at least it's alright there. But I want to try smaller jets, so I will order at least a 70, 68 and maybe even 66 and 64. I might go and order an entire jet kit, even though an entire jet kit is like $150 delivered. So yeah, here we have the power valve, which is very loose. The power valve is supposed to open at a certain engine vacuum, and maybe the power valve is bad. But I actually need to know what kind of power valve it is, so I might have to take the plate off anyway. So let me take the gasket off. And this thing. Come off. So let's see if I can get this thing off as well. I'm going to do another attempt with my special tool. I am hammering down on the floor because the plastic table I'm using is not offering enough resistance to the hammer, so it will actually bend and flex. It's amazing how much you can do with a hammer. And it comes off. And it's again blue gasket, which should be recoverable, reusable. So we have the power valve, which in this case is a 65. Which again I think is right. Damn, I think this power valve is bad. Maybe it's just This has a membrane that seals. In case you're not seeing it, I am actually sucking on the power valve. A power valve is generally open until it reaches a certain vacuum and then it closes, which in terms of engine working is exactly the opposite. Meaning that an engine, when it's idling, it has high vacuum, and in this case, it being a 6.5 inches of vacuum power valve, it will stay closed until the vacuum drops below 6.5 inches, which is usually when you open the throttle, the vacuum inside the carburetor drops, and therefore the power valve opens and drops fuel into the engine. And if the power valve, like in my case, is always open and doesn't close, meaning that even at idle it dumps fuel into the carburetor, making the car run way too rich. Okay, yes, I think this power valve is bad, because as much as I try sucking on it, I cannot get it to close, so it stays open, and if it stays open it will dump fuel into the engine. So I think this needs to be replaced. I'll still put it in, just to be sure. So, I'll put everything back together for the moment. It should come apart more easily the next time around. So I'm going to replace the power valve for sure, and maybe also jet the engine down, but the power valve is a given really at this point. Let's put everything back together for the time being. Tick. 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 Good. This is alright. Okay, I put the car back together for now because I'm only interested in this part here, the idle, the primary bowl, the primary metering and the stuff, because that's what influences the idle. And I think the power valve is bad, so I will see if I have to order one or if it comes in the rebuild kit I already ordered. But I will definitely also order a couple of jets so I can jet the engine down, which also could make it run less fat. But for now the car is back together. I'll put it away until everything arrives. And I'm not going to do a full rebuild of this carburetor because I'm only interested in this half, the one that has to do with the idle, because the rest I don't really care about. Secondaries, I don't really floor the car too often, and also when you floor it, it runs alright for the time being. Also the choke, I haven't really needed it because the car has been run so fat, and then again it's a manual choke, so it doesn't really matter. So once I receive the parts, I will replace or rebuild a part of this, put it back on the car and see if it works. But until then, this is all I have for you, so please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more on the old Caddy and my carburetor woes, and follow me on Instagram if you want to see some other stuff and in between updates. And otherwise, that's the video, so thank you for watching and goodbye from my little terrace at home. Bye.